lately as I've seen Parkersburg and the Mid Ohio Valley and the areas around here just continually deteriorate with the drug problem and the unfettered gang activity. And I've wanted to challenge some of the ideas that are allowing this to perpetuate that seem to be prevalent and almost ubiquitous in the minds of uh, most of Americans in the West. I'd say it's just a regional problem or something because it's so bad. But I can't think of anywhere where I go in this country where there's not just drug addicts everywhere you turn and drug dealers everywhere you turn. And it shouldn't be this way. We should be people who want to stand up for our kids and people who want to stand up for our families and communities and not just see degradation and deterioration at all levels. I feel like we deserve better, we can do better, and it doesn't have to be this way. Now, because I understand that by and large, even no matter what denomination one may be in, most of this country has some connection to the Bible in some way. And I actually blame somewhat Christians and Christianity and their beliefs that are not scriptural, okay, for part of the problem. I want to read for you Second Thessalonians chapter 3 verse 10. For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. So Paul was traveling with some people, and he said when we were there, here was the rule. And I set the example myself, he says in the verse before. If you won't get off your butt and do something, starve. It's just that simple. Solves a lot of problems just right off the bat. You know, Christians have pansied their way into a fake sort of love that God Himself doesn't share because they've divorced justice from forgiveness. And you can't just love and forgive without justice. These are two extremely important yin and yang ideas that have to go together at all times. You could call it the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine if you want. You could call it yin and yang. You could call it God the Father and God the Son. Islam even has some words for it. Uh, there is, see, I tend to forget Islam. What is it? Isan. And I forgot the other one. Well, anyway, there are three parts of Islam that sort of mirror the Trinity in a sense, and two of them have the more masculine characteristics and the more forgiving, loving characteristics. But in this country, we have taken off the masculine part altogether. We've taken apart justice and just thrown it away and said we don't really care about the justice. We're just going to forgive, love, and feed everybody. And God Himself doesn't do this. When I picture heaven as a place, if you want to believe in it, and I don't know factually whether it's really there or not, but I don't mind symbolically, however you want to think of it. If you want to believe it's real, I'm okay with that. You're welcome to think anything you want. Doesn't offend me. But when I think of heaven, I think of it as a place not with open borders like the United States apparently has right now, where anybody can just come and go as they please, but a place with walls and gates and people that can come in and people that can't. And the people that can't come in live very badly. This is a view shared by many religions around the world. And it used to be a concept of virtually all people that if you won't put in your work and if you won't push for the betterment of your society, then you get rejected from that society. And it wouldn't matter if you were religious or not. The concept is just basic. If you want to believe in evolution and you want to believe you're a part of some tribe and in the jungle somewhere, and one of your uh, tribesmen wouldn't pull his weight, well, that tribesman would be rejected, ejected from the tribe, and would starve, and justly so. And natural selection would just have to pick someone a little more fit, wouldn't they? But we have this view now that we're supposed to just love indiscriminately every single person. God doesn't do that. I'm sorry to say, but God has rules. God has restrictions. Society has restrictions. Evolutionary societies, according to evolutionary theory, they make rules, and those rules are governed by natural laws like survival of the fittest. You can't get around this, no matter your perspective, creed, or belief. And yet we now live in a society that has gone so far down the path of love and acceptance, and just let everything go, and so permissive that we take food and we consider ourselves good people for giving food to everybody. And here in Parkersburg, this has become a monumental problem. And in probably other places, I think probably out in California, where the homeless are just filling entire streets. Well, around here we have the same problem. It's not quite as bad as California yet, but it's not a whole lot better, because proportionally it's probably worse, because this is a small town. But all over the place we have homeless people making camps and living in the woods and living along the rivers, and just transients coming in and out, because they know that they're going to get 3 meals a day from the charities that are indiscriminately, quote unquote, loving them. Okay. But how do they return that sort of love? What is the return on investment of indiscriminately caring about people that should not be cared or loved for without reason, and who do not put forth effort into their lives? Let me give you some examples of what happens. There was a woman we talked to who's in the hospital, and I think now she's in a nursing home, just a few weeks ago. Me and a friend were talking to her, and she talked about how she was helping some of these homeless people around here. And one day she went somewhere and they broke into her home, wrecked her whole house. She's lucky that she wasn't there at the time. Stole everything, wrecked everything else. The people she was helping, loving, and now guess what? Now she doesn't have a home. True story. Right here in this area. You say, well, that's probably just exception. No, 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 it's not. Over on 16th Street in Parkersburg, there was an old lady right across the street from a property one of my relatives owns, just directly across the street. She was a little old lady, and she felt same as this other little old lady. Oh, we as good Christian people, we have to love these homeless people. We got to help them. We got to feed them. Helping these people out of her home. Well, one day she didn't have something to give, and guess what? They broke in, took what they wanted, killed her, and threw her in the river. You understand? You don't help anybody by helping people indiscriminately, without discretion, without justice being applied to your love. There's two sides. Okay, there's God the Father, God the Son. There's yin, there's yang. There's light, there's darkness. There's masculinity, there's femininity. You have to have both, and when you take either one out of the equation, you have a breakdown in the fundamental supports of society. You have to add back the justice that we used to have. The whole world used to be far more sane, maybe even a little too far at times, on the masculine side, if you will, on the harsher side, on the side of judgment. And you generally didn't have the lawlessness in most countries. And then there's still some places today. If you If you steal, they'll cut your hand off. You say, oh, that's a terrible, horrible thing. There's not a lot of theft there. And I guarantee you they don't have homeless all over the places, because they'll tell them, get off your butt, do something and work, or they're more Christian than most of you Christians in these countries, even though they're not Christian. And they'll say, if you don't work, you don't eat. You see, you have to demand something of people. And it's not an option. You see, a lot of these charities, they make themselves feel good, even though they're doing wrong and making the community worse, because they think I can just feed anybody without getting to know them first, without getting to see if they really want to better their lives. And what they're doing is, because of this, is they've brought in thousands now of transients into this small town of Parkersburg, and they're just everywhere, stealing everywhere you go. And I mean everywhere. We've got the pictures. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you some pictures here. So I'll hit my share screen, and as we'll start here in a second, let's see. Let's do share. Takes me a minute to find it. So let's go to right here. All right. So I'll pull this up. We'll get into where we're finding push carts for grocery stores everywhere. We'll get to all these. Okay. We're taking pictures of. We have found that in the last 2 or 3 years, every piece of wall in this community, even where kids wait for school buses, is covered in gang graffiti now. And I mean out in the country. I mean, as you're going out towards Clarksburg, you got 50 miles between, a little more than that, 70 miles between here and Clarksburg, out on 50. And if you look to the right, you'll see that there are places where the little kids are waiting on their school bus, covered in gang graffiti, like some of the graffiti I'm going to show you on here. Down in the bottom corner of this picture is a little bit of it. Anytime you see the 47 and the arrows, that's a gang sign. That's somebody that's selling drugs that wrote that there, not the fish. Although the mushroom might be, I don't know. Maybe somebody's selling mushrooms too. And I'm not here to try to interpret every last bit of graffiti and tell you that I know exactly what every single one of them means, though I've talked to the police here locally, and one of the officers told me that there are at least 10 gangs, 10 gangs now in this neighborhood, selling and peddling their drugs in this little tiny town of Parkersburg that he knows of. And I'm talking about the dangerous ones, the MS-13, Latin Kings, and Gangster Disciples, and all these. And we see other transients and homeless coming in, and they're pushing their grocery carts down the road openly in the middle of the daytime, walking into stores, leaving with whatever they want, filling up their grocery carts, walking down to the next store, stealing more stuff, and just walking down the street with carts full of stolen material. Every dumpster you see in this town. And I mean the outskirts of town too. I mean out in Vienna. I mean down in Southside. Really bad in Southside. Downtown Parkersburg itself. Surrounding areas, Belpre, Marietta. All these areas are their dumpsters have all been raided. You can't hardly go to a store without seeing them in a dumpster at any time, especially anywhere where they give out free stuff, because it's like a magnet to them. So you Goodwills and Salvation Army, they come and they congest around these areas, and they steal stuff from the dumpsters, but then they take a little walk and they steal stuff from all the dumpsters. And if you look at them, they're all fat. You'll notice that real fast too. I mean, like most of them, they're not skinny people. They're fat, but they're just swine. They live on filth. They eat donuts. You see the stuff they pull right out of a garbage can, eat it. you know, most of them are drug addicts. We're going to get into this because, I mean, they're so disgusting that so addicted that fentanyl patches that people throw away, they dive into these dumpsters and chew on them nasty things in the middle of the night. Isn't that disgusting? This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who have no discernment. And I'm not even talking about the transients, the drug addicts, but rather the people that should be saying this is unacceptable. You and me, because we have this Christian belief that isn't Christian at all, that is divorced from historic biblical interpretations, from good theology, if you will. And I should know, I went to Bible college, right? The first time I read the Bible, I was 13. Not trying to brag, but I'm just telling you, I know what I'm saying here. It is not Christian doctrine to feed people who don't deserve to be fed, who won't lift a finger. You're not helping God, you're helping the devil. And you're condemning an entire generation of kids who will have to live with their crime, with their filth, and with their perversion, with their disgusting, unsanitary filth that they spread, their diseases that they spread. You are responsible for that because you're feeding them indiscriminately and feeling good about doing wrong. You're not a good person because you feed the homeless. Now, if you feed a homeless person who says, yes, I will work, I will lift a finger, I'll do my best, something bad happened, help me out, and get to know that person. Don't bring them to your house ever. Don't ever be that stupid. But, get to know who they are. You go to them, never let them know where you live. Okay. But you as a group, you understand. And if they maybe they're homeless, so they don't live anywhere, but if they're trying to move up and they're making steps, okay, help them. And if they ever stop doing that, stop helping them, because it's not love. It's not a good thing to help these people. Let them starve. God told you that. I just read the verse in 2 Thessalonians 3, chapter 3, verse 10. So you can't go out and claim God. You might feel good about it, about helping, feeding somebody, going to a soup kitchen. But you shouldn't. You should have a conscience about the people you're hurting, because you're enabling these people then to go out, and then now they don't have to use whatever money they scrounge up on food. Now they can use their money on drugs. And they do. And they do it in mass. Here's how in this community you can know a lot of the drug users. I know some of you want to see more pictures probably. This is the flood wall down there. But here's how you know the drug addicts. Here's how you can recognize them. And I don't mean these pictures on the flood wall. If you, it ain't them. But here's how you sell. And this is not universally true, but it's probably somewhere in the order of 95 to 99% true. If you see a grungy dressed person, all right, and they have an umbrella in the broad daytime, there's a good chance they're hiding a machete underneath that umbrella. It's not raining. Why do they need an umbrella? If they're pushing a push cart, they're probably stealing things. If they have a backpack on and they're dressed grungy and nasty, they're walking in the middle of town. Well, guess what? They're stealing stuff from stores and putting it in the backpack, and they are putting drugs in the backpack. If you see them on bicycles, it's because they don't have a driver's license. You understand? Now, what a lot of these rehabs are doing is they're literally taking people from all these cities. Akron is where a lot of them are coming from, Pittsburgh, big cities, Columbus, Cleveland, and they're bringing them down to these rehabs here in Parkersburg, and maybe 1 in 1,000 of them gets off drugs, but most of them are insincere from the beginning. Okay, they're court ordered to come to the rehabs. They have no intention of getting off, and while they are in the rehabs, they are operating an active drug trade and selling drugs in our community. And then when they get released, these rehabs have no plan to bring them back, take them back to where they should live, where they came from. And instead, they just release them in our streets. And so now, in just the last few years, with these disgusting rehabs, these horrid organizations that have destroyed our town. And who's responsible for these? City council, the steering commission, the other commissions. If you'll look at their names, none of them live in Parkersburg. Isn't that amazing? Because they don't care. They'll just destroy stuff, make money. They're investors. I know the mayor runs ambulances at the hospital, so he gets his free supply of Narcan from the government, and they're just constantly rehabbing just enough of these people that just get them straightened out, just enough that they can dump them out. Oh, and now they have a steady customer supply. Isn't that great at your and my expense? And it's absolutely disgusting what they're doing. Oh, but they're making a lot of money. Say there's some mushrooms. This is there on the flood wall, but we got pictures from all kinds of stuff. And I'm not going to pretend that I know what every single one of these mean. Then you say, well, some of them are just kids drawing stuff. Like there's Maddie, yeah, probably that's just a kid or something. I don't know. But you could go underneath any bridge in this town, the East Street Bridge and the Fifth Street Bridge. If you go down underneath there's somebody's hiding something inside this hollow tree right down by the river there by the big Parkersburg Belpre Bridge. Here's the park up on the hill, Quincy Hill, and you'll see I went up there and I came to take these pictures and look for this 5-pointed star that I heard about. Sure enough, there's a 5-pointed star. And no, I've done videos in the past. I don't think all 5-pointed stars are evil or anything, but it's just interesting. They have the flagpole over a 5-pointed star. But going around the 5-pointed star was a bunch of drug addicts with backpacks. They all saw me and they just watched me while I sat there in my car. This is how see the little kid playground stuff back here? This is a small town, people. And these drug addicts are walking around in front of the kids, waiting for their next person to come buy stuff. They see me. There's 420, marijuana. Gangster Disciples, I think. The Stars and the 74, I think. Or Gangster's Disciples, I think. I don't know. Northern Cree, is that another one? But they just watch me. And then when they realize I'm getting out, the pitchforks and the 7 and the 4 is what this is. It looks like kind of, I don't know. I call them Susies because from a distance, it looks like it says Susie, but and I haven't been studying and all this, but this is one of the most, this symbol right here. It looks like pitchfork and a Z and a 4 or whatever. The Z that makes a 7 and a 4, which by the way, is not a coincidence. I could tell you about that 7-4 and it being Hughes' birthday and how he stopped the drug trade and all that. Watch some of my other videos to really understand that 7-4, but they're all about that 7-4. But that's the symbol I see everywhere and all over our bridge, even out in broad daylight on the top. They just walk across and paint it in broad daylight half the time because nobody's going to stop them. None of us are standing up. But I see that on the kids' waiting area where they're waiting for their bus. That's gang sign right there. This city is just, look at this right there, right next to the park. Isn't that crazy? There's another one. So you see those little 6-pointed stars everywhere, like I was saying. Now, there used to be a park up here in Mountwood Park. We walked up there and there used to be swimming pool. There used to be basketball. There used to be tennis up there years ago, long before I came to this town. And the county decided they didn't want that because they didn't want to spend money on it. But then you start looking at who's on the city council in Parkersburg, and you realize you got land developers on or not the city council, but the county commission rather. And you realize you got land developers on the county commission. And so they took down the parks because they're hoping for a deal. And they didn't just let this go. They freaking destroyed it. They came in there with big old trucks and tore up the ground, tore up the baseball fields. I mean, they freaking demolished it. They wanted this thing gone. And my understanding is that it was popular. People liked to go up there. Now the kids have nothing to do but sell freaking drugs. All the land developers are going to get a deal. They'll probably make billions of dollars, county commissioners, when their land developing companies buy this from the county. Isn't that great how this works? You understand? Look at the houses. You see the boarded up house, and you see the cart right there in front of the house. So somebody's living in a house with a cart, and there were several more in the woods next to this one. License plates laying around. Look, donuts on top of trash cans. Homeless people sleeping right next to this little river here behind this, and he puts his little address on here and says who he is. Here's his little bed. I mean, these things are freaking everywhere. Oh, and here's right behind skate country here in Parkersburg, and please don't stop going to skate country, support them, because I know they would hate this stuff as much as anybody else. But it looked like maybe they were meeting for homosexual activities, maybe for pay, in the back there behind the skate country. And then right outside in the woods, we go, this is right beside skate country there. We go out there and we see there's a stuffed monkey over here. Yeah, here it is. There's the stuffed monkey right here. And we've been finding these in the woods. We just barely go into the woods. And there's one. There's another one out on I-95 as you go out toward Broadway. We found another one. And when one of my friends was looking this up, he says these are all over the state. They're this little sign of one of their drug types that they're selling. And you can see lots of activity and litter all over the area and stuff painted on trees. And then I don't want to get too far, but right down over here, close to here, there, I'll skip through that real fast. I don't want you to actually, they'll be looking at that, but that was an actual restraining order that we found. So I skipped through it really quick, you see. But, and then on top of that was a notebook that talked about killing people. On here, you got to love this. Over on the Belpre side, if you go over to the Belpre side, you go underneath that bridge, and here's this. Look, Steps. Steps is the program that they're supposed to be using at the rehab to get off drugs. Okay. But if you follow the bridge and you follow what it says, look, rest in peace, Steps. What are they saying? They're saying, no, we don't give a hooey about the rehab and what they're teaching us. And instead, they're going down, oh, look, Steps. Sure it is. Yeah. And then, oh, there's their gang sign. And the arrows always point to where the drugs are. In case you don't know that. That much we did figure out. That all the gangs seem to use this. Southwood gang. Anywhere the arrow points. So this is the beam underneath the bridge on the Belpre side. And look where it's pointing. Right here to where this little ledge is. And that's where the people coming out of the rehab, while they're in rehab, are saying they're going away from Steps and leaving their drugs for people right underneath the bridge. Oh, look, more gangs. That's on the Belpre side, people. That's why you see them with the backpacks going into Dollar General over there and everything. Look, there's this. See the arrow right there on the beam? They're leaving the drugs right there for somebody to come pick up. See? Oh, right here. Okay, if you're in the STEPS program, well, the STEPS program is actually the opposite of the arrow. It's the other way to go over the bridge. You have to get on top and go over it. And right on the other side is the big rehab. Oh, but you go away from it, and right here, here's your BTA is probably another one of their gangs, I imagine. I don't know that, but I guess that's what that means. And somebody that's in the know will probably laugh at it. But why are we just okay with this? This is not okay. See, all over the bridge, on top of the bridge. Look, this is on top. There's that symbol again. Anytime you see the love and the hearts, it means they're saying they love drugs. It's not rocket science. See, there's that symbol everywhere you go. And you see them, just people spray painting this. They got a backpack on. Sometimes they got an umbrella with a machete in it. I understood from the scanner, I think it was, somebody was saying that down at Buffalo Wild Wings a few weeks ago, one of these transient guys came in and stole a purse as a girl was coming out of Buffalo Wild Wings, and somebody took off after him and he pulled one of the machetes on him. These people they're armed in their own ways. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them have machetes and others have other things. Now here's down underneath the East Street Bridge, some old worn out areas. You can see places where obviously this is not area where somebody could fix this up. Okay. These things need to be torn down, but they're just full of homeless people. You know, the old Corning and everything back here. We found an old knife down by the river. Now this one is the Fifth Street Bridge underneath here. And look right here. Look in this picture. Here's the Fifth Street Bridge. Do you see you see all the bike tires that are thrown all over this tree and all the shoestrings? Now this is a classical symbol with the shoes. The shoes, everybody knows. I've known since I was a little kid that shoes over a telephone pole suspended means you buy drugs here. So this is right by the Fifth Street Bridge underneath it. Well, the tires, you see all these bicycle riders, they're also filling their tires full of drugs. And they're saying, hey, this is a big old huge clear symbol. Look how high they threw these up in this tree. They want this to be seen. They want you to know, come down here and you can buy drugs. Look for people with bicycles, bikes, and the shoes. They're tying the two together. Bikes, drugs are probably in the inner tubes and they're transporting them right in plain sight. Right down. Look for the druggies. Look for the bicycle guys. They're telling you, whether you want to believe it or not, that I don't know. I can't understand why people don't want to believe it in this town, that this is the filth that's going on right there. It's undeniable. There you go. See the bike tire? Same tree. Here's another place that we found right there off of Camden Avenue, the Southwood Gang. Look, they had these little arrows, and right behind where this dumpster was a little tote. It was on the scanner too, where they had left some stolen goods in plastic totes. We found plastic totes where they steal stuff behind skate country. There it is right there. See, I hear it, and then I go take a picture of it when I hear it on the scanner. You see, you go up on the hill and look at these old buildings. I don't even know what this old factory was, but they're just empty. They get on top of the roofs, and they put their freaking gang signs all over the place. This NAK or whatever, I think, is some sort of, I believe that's related to a sexual innuendo thing. So they may be selling people in this area or something. It's just unbelievable what's going on. From what I've looked up, maybe somebody else can correct me. But you see the Southwood Gang, SWG here. Nobody stops them. Nobody patrols these properties properly. They advertise real big with impunity. It's like we have no police force. And then I don't want to put down the police because I know some of them, a lot of them are good. A lot of them want to do a good job. But then you have other police that were with Gretchen the night she disappeared. Former police. I understand. Now, here's an address at a boarded up house that had somebody living in it. We saw him in there. And it says his address was 644, but it's a drop of blood and 44. 44, you've heard me talk about in many other videos, means death, murder. You know, and this goes back to part of Hugh's life where his 4 wives were murdered and he was abducted at 4 years old. It's unbelievable what they're doing. Just right up there on that hill. Here's what we found on the restraining order. Whosoever, I'll try to read it, but whosoever fails to find me harms himself. All who hate me love death. Sometimes you do things when wisdom tells us not to. Sometimes, that's the same one. Tells us not to. It's really hard to read this, so some of you might see different words than I'm seeing. We are tired of this world and our shortcomings. Go a different way, the wrong way. Whosoever When we shouldn't. Okay, the wrong way when we shouldn't. If we choose to, daggone it, didn't mean to hit the button. Sorry about that. If we choose to something death, I don't know what that word is. Choose to love death. There we go. Because we are tired of this world. Tired of this life. That's it. There we go. That's what it says. So, there's somebody, kind of making a manifesto right there on top of a restraining order right outside of skate country. And yeah, we called the police. They came, picked it up. Right here at this sign, just past Broadway, is another one of those stuffed monkeys right there in the woods. You just look up there, and it might be a little bit hard to see in these pictures, but right there on the oh, here it is. I got a close up. See, another stuffed monkey. See, we're not making this stuff up. It's just nobody looks and nobody is observant. Oh, the Bloods are here too. Another gang. Isn't that nice? Don't you love rehabs? Don't you think we need more rehabs? You know what? I think we need to feed more people, don't we? We need to feed them so that they can use the money that they bomb to buy more drugs from the Bloods. Because, they're such harmless people. They wouldn't hurt anybody. They love everybody. They'll love you to death even. That's how much they love you. They'll love you to death. Oh, there's steps, solutions to every problem sober. See what steps means? But they're getting away from steps and going towards the drugs while they're in rehabs and openly bragging about it. So what are you going to do about it, Parkersburg? I'll tell you what you should do. One, you should sue the rehabs every time one of these guys does something terrible who shouldn't be in our town. Let's sue them. Would they hurt your business? Sue the rehabs for releasing them in the street, for not having a plan if you can. What other things could we do? We can all get together at different days and we can all come outside. And when we see them, obvious drug users, and we should not do anything illegal, but we should say, hey, we don't want you here in our town. Get out of here. We should all be writing the rehabs. They should be getting 100 letters a day from 500 or 600 people saying no more of this. We want you out of our town. Get out. You need to write to the steering committee and say, you have no right to do this to us. You don't even live in our neighborhood. Get out. Stop flooding us with drugs. Stop flooding us with transients. Stop flooding us with machetes and crazy people running in our streets. Twice, just a few weeks ago, folks, twice, 2 days in a row, I stood down in the traffic circle and I called the cops on some crazy guy with no shirt on who was throwing rocks at cars. And the cars were honking at him, and he'd yell at the cars as they steered to try to miss running into him. And I had to call the cops twice, 2 days in a row. He was out doing that in the same place. This week, I saw a young girl. She was on the scanner. I noticed when I got home, somebody called the cops on her, but I couldn't do it at that time because I was driving. But I saw a young girl. She looked like she was probably somewhere between 20 and 25. Little skinny girl with her arms just a flailing. She was just a singing at the top of her lungs, arms flailing up and down, up and down. She was just all right beside the road. We're seeing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 overdoses every day of the week around here. Small town people. This isn't freaking Chicago. But it's getting pretty darn close, and your odds of dying here are actually higher statistically and proportionately than they are in New York City. We have serial killers around here. There are guesses of who killed Gretchen Fleming, if she is indeed dead. And those people are saying some really creepy things. Really creepy things. And even on their Facebook page. They're evil, disgusting people. And it's time that we as a society, we, especially the men, look, I want the women to stand up to whatever they feel comfortable doing. But really, this is a job that we men, it is not going to go away until we stand up and do something about it. And by the way, I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe that you should lawfully adhere to the Second Amendment while you make sure that you're standing up for your community. Yes, I select my words wisely. But I would like to see every time we see one of these folks, 15, 20, 30 people come out of their homes and we all gathered around the road and we just say, keep going, bud. And we start it with a protest and say, we just recognize what you're doing out here and we don't want you doing it anymore. Oh, and we watch where they go and we point it out to each other lawfully. And we make them feel uncomfortable instead of our children feeling uncomfortable every time they have to go to work or school. Or found one of them with two backpacks within 1,000 feet of a school, not a little kid, a rugged, nasty old one of these drug pushers with two backpacks, one on the front and one on the back, walking right in front of the school over there in one place. Huh. Is that what you want, Parkersburg? You want this to continue? Or are the men going to gather with me and say enough's enough? You see, they are more organized than you ever will realize. These rehabs will take somebody, and the 1 in 1,000 that actually gets off drugs, if it's even that high, the 1 in 1,000 that actually gets off drugs, they'll turn those people into a celebrity. And they will parade them around. You'll see them. Oh, they're getting politicians. They'll have several jobs from churches and other places, and places where kind of fall between the cracks because most places won't hire you if you're a felon, right? And been through rehab. That, but they won't make those 1 in 1,000 that get through it stay. They won't make those people. Go through the misery that you and I would have to do, starting at the bottom of the work chain and maybe really having to struggle in life. No. They're going to parade those people. They're going to take the 1 in 1,000 that actually gets off drugs, and they're going to meet every politician you can find. They're going to run for politics. They're going to try to make the community look a little better, make it look like the rehabs are really doing something. And I don't know about you, but I feel like if somebody has gotten off of drugs, that the only thing that they have accomplished so far in life is they've got off drugs. Heck, I've done that since I was 0 years old. I've never been on drugs. So I have 45 years off drugs, but nobody's beating a path to my door. I have to gruel and grunge and work for a living. Now, I admit my job that I have right now isn't very hard, but that's beside the point. I've had plenty of hard jobs in the past. I got an idea. Put them at the bottom because you owe society a debt if you've been on drugs, you owe society a debt. And you're not repentant of your drugs unless you go and you turn in your drug suppliers. If you turn in your fellow drug users and you admit to the public you want it to stop and you want these people turned in, and either they force themselves to change or consequences. They will not be fed. They will starve because we're not going to help them. That's what a repentant drug user, former drug user looks like. He's active. He's saying no more in my community. I was wrong. No, he's not a celebrity out meeting politicians and governors and running for positions and making a bunch of money from a bunch of places and never having to lift a finger in a real job. That's your government and rehabs working together so that, somebody looks at that and they say, hey, maybe I should do drugs too, because, hey, if I do drugs and I get caught, the worst that's going to happen is I go to a rehab and they give me a whole bunch of work and they make my life easy. And then I get to go and be famous. And, by the way, if I really don't want to, I could use, or if I really want to, I could kind of use this fake recovery as a chance to make my image better while I go sell more drugs. And that's what a whole lot of them are doing. There's a rumor that someone in the county, an official this week from good sources, won't reveal them, have found county officials right here in Parkersburg doing drugs, and it's being swept under the rug. What do you think of that, Parkersburg? I can't verify that, okay? The sources are good sources, and I strongly suspect it's true. Because why not sell drugs? Look at what happens. You get 3 meals a day if you want it from Catholic charities, from North Baptist Church or whatever it's called on Emerson, from Xavier, and from Salvation Army. And so all these people are feeding them indiscriminately, and they're coming in and they're staying. This is not rocket science, all right? I want you to think about this. Supply and demand. If I put more dollars towards something, you get more of it, don't you? Isn't that how supply and demand works? Okay. If I spend more money, I get more because somebody wants that money. So they're going to get more of the product that I want to buy. Now, if I'm buying drug dealers, whether with money or if I'm buying homeless people with food, 3 meals a day and infinite bunches of clothes and no laws against dumpster diving and no city ordinances being enforced against dumpster diving, what am I going to get? And it's obvious because the proof's in the pudding. We're seeing this multiply exponentially in Parkersburg. Hundreds, thousands of them now roaming the streets, and it's not safe in Parkersburg anymore. You can't just get out of your car and walk into a business or walk into the mall, because every single day there are people arrested high and running around and with guns and drugs and machetes chasing people off right there in the mall and in Walmart and in Buffalo Wild Wings in Vienna and other places. I don't want to live like that anymore. And I think there's a lot of men, especially. Now, I welcome ladies who want to participate, but I don't put as much onus on you as because somebody needs to take care of their house and be responsible for the kids and things at home. And I want somebody to be left after we stand, and some of us we may suffer the consequences of standing, but I don't think that pushing it off for another generation is the responsible thing that men do. You see, when the founders came to this area, they said, let's not push off on the next generation this conflict with the British. No, our generation's going to stand up and fight the British. Now, 200 years later, the men need to stand up and say, we're going to contradict the drug addicts and the gangs and the drug users and the transients and the homeless and the people feeding them and the city council that's investing in them and the mayor that's investing in them and the steering committees that's investing in them. And we're going to fight with all of our might in every legal means possible. There may come a day when the government falls apart. If or when that happens, I suspect that another form of justice will be the rule of the day, and that this problem will go away very quickly, if that ever happens. But right now, with everything we have in us, we have to stand lawfully. We have to follow the rules, but we can make a difference. And the way we do that is we actually have to be more diligent than they are. You see, because 24 hours a day, night and day, they're riding their little bicycles with backpacks on, and they're taking drugs from house to house. Well, who's following them, and why don't we know what house they went to? I'll tell you, there's no courage because I need 10, 15, 20, 30 people to meet at a park. So some of you, you watch this, send me a message, say, yeah, let's meet. Let's go meet at City Park or something. And let's start gathering together groups of people who are going to stand. And every time we see some of these people, we call 15 people, we all meet and we say, no, move along, buddy. Every time we see one, we follow to where they're selling the drugs. We say, we saw where you sold that. Just want you to know. And I'm talking about legal behavior here. Let them know they're not wanted. Let them know they need to move it on out of Parkersburg. Let them know that they're hurting children. Do you understand that if you do drugs, you're hurting children? You're no better than a child molester. An illegal drug user is a child abuser. And that needs to be on everybody's car in Parkersburg and in the Mid-Ohio Valley. The least you could do is get a bumper sticker and put that on your car. Every illegal drug user, and I say illegal drug user is a child abuser. You understand the difference between a bad drug and a good drug? I'm not going to say legal or illegal in every chance, because sometimes legal drugs are used for illegal purposes, like Percocet or something like that, and somebody uses it. What I mean, okay, what makes a drug bad? Some people want to confuse medicine with drugs and say, well, you get prescription drugs. I mean, like, I take what is it? I can't think of the name of it. I take a mood stabilizer drug. But here's the difference. It's illegal, prescription, but it doesn't get me high. It can't get you high. But the difference is, if something is helping you focus to stay in reality and not be caught up in your emotions to the point that you're not able to function in society anymore, that's good. If something, on the other hand, is taking you away from your mind so that you live in your feelings and that you live just for body and away from reality, that's a bad drug. Legal or illegal is not that, doesn't really matter that much. But for the sake of simplicity, we're going to say illegal, whether that's actually illegal or whether it's illegal in intent to get high, to run from reality. Because if you are an illegal drug user, you are a child abuser at some level. You are supporting the drug people in Mexico mostly, and in China, that are fighting your country, who are making it hell on earth in their own countries, who are trafficking literally in children, and you are buying their product. There's nothing you can do. When you buy something from a drug user, or a drug seller, I should say, you are supporting the cartels 99% of the time. Almost all the drugs come from Mexico. Now, you have no right to abuse yourself to the point that your abuse could cause you to abuse me, or abuse my family, or abuse communities, or abuse children, whether they're your children or other people's children. You have no right to lose your mind to the point where you could hurt somebody else, because your rights end where my rights begin. So you can't you can't just do whatever you want, and you never could. This is natural law. This is based in, all laws are supposed to curb somebody's behavior. Now, I know modern days we have different kinds of laws that really don't, but all laws are supposed to curb somebody's behavior. They're supposed to tell you what you can and can't do with your own body. For example, I cannot run that stop sign. I cannot use my foot to press the gas pedal to go past the stop sign. I have to hit the brake pedal. It controls my body, right? All drugs are like this at their fundamental core, and these laws should be your rights end where mine begin. Your body has to be controlled to some extent, because if you get out of control, then you step over that line and you're infringing upon my safety, my peace, my right to property. And these are fundamental rights, self-evident rights, rights granted by God. Okay, self-evident that we all know. I'm surprised nobody's called in yet. There's a link there, guys, YouTube or Facebook. You just click that link and your little picture shows up, and you show up right beside me when I click you. And you can, if you got your 2 cents you want to throw in there, go for it. We as men need to stand up for our right to life, liberty, and property. Okay, and it used to be property, but to put it in the Constitution, they had to say property, or right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness instead of property, because of the slave issue. But originally you had a right to life, liberty, and property. Those were the three fundamentals. If what you do with yourself might endanger one of these three fundamentals, life, liberty, or my property, my pursuit of happiness, see, your pursuit of happiness ends because when you lose your mind, then you're not able to restrain yourself from infringing upon me. Therefore, laws have to control you. You said that's because there's a lot of people out there that think they should just be able to take all the drugs they want. And maybe there's a way that could be done. I mean, there's places like in the Netherlands and so on where they have a red light district and you go in. Well, let's say that we tried that someday and we find out it works. And everybody that goes in, they have to do their drugs inside that area. You go in that area, you're putting yourself in danger. You're inspected before you come out of that red light district to make sure you're not carrying drugs out, that you're not harming anybody. Maybe that would work. Maybe if there was a little red light district in every town, but we don't have that right now, right? So without that, anytime you lose yourself and you're not in charge of yourself, that means either I have to compensate for you to protect myself, or the law has to compensate for what your lack of control. Grant says drugs equals open air concentrated kill zone. Yeah, drugs are a kill zone. Drugs are killing people around here by the hundreds yearly. And this is just a small town and we're seeing it this bad. So for one, I don't want to stand for this anymore. I don't want to just allow this. I want to be part of the resistance. And back in the 60s, people thought they were resisting the man, right? But what are you going to resist anymore? If you want to resist the man, or you want to resist the corporations, or you want to resist the government, resist drugs, because then you're resisting it all at the same time. Because the corporations and the government and the drug addicts and the cartels, they all work together. This is why you had Obama in Fast and Furious using the CIA to trade guns with the cartels for drugs, which your CIA and police sell all over the country. And that money ends up back in the hands of senators and governors, and mostly the U.S. Senate is largely responsible for it, and the president. Why do you think $85 billion of equipment was left in Afghanistan? I mean, this president should be tarred and feathered and chased out of this country. He should be booed everywhere he goes, universally. His weapons that he left in Afghanistan are already coming back through the southern border and into California. This is unacceptable. And if that's just one or two stories that actually made it on the air, imagine how many more actually, there's probably rocket launchers and heaven knows what else, tanks maybe, who knows what else they've brought through the southern border that Obama or Biden gave them. And no, Trump's not any better. He hid the drug trade just as much, in fact, more. How do I know that? How do I know that these people are responsible. This is where I get into Hugh's life, which I talk about on my other videos. You see, because Hugh Squire stopped a drug trade several times, ran by the CIA on the property that he purchased from Mazar, who was Trump's tax attorneys at the time. And Nichols and McVeigh were two of the people running the drugs on that property. Later on, he was sitting at a donut shop, and two guys dressed in black ties. You're like Men in Black almost, but this wasn't a UFO story. He goes and he's sitting there eating a donut, and these two guys in black suits and ties, they come and they sit down on either side of him there while he's eating donuts at Shelby Donuts. And they say, "Hey, you never know what'll blow up today." And he was like, "What?" Then they just stand up and they walk out. That day, the Alfred P. Murrah building was bombed by, supposedly, McVeigh and Nichols, the two drug dealers from the CIA that he had interfered with on the property in Utica, Michigan. That's how you know that the CIA is running drugs across. That's just, part of how we know. I mean, gosh, you got people like Robert Tosh Plumley who openly admitted it. I was in the CIA and I was running drugs and buying drugs. He said it was from Cuba. That's a lie. He was getting them from Mexico. But he says he got them from Cuba and that he was flying drugs in for the U.S. government and selling them all over the country. It's not like you really got to try hard to put these together. This isn't that hard of a conspiracy theory. I mean, you got CIA agents who said, "Yeah, I did that." Former CIA agents. You got people who've seen it happen, who saw, like Hugh Squire, who saw McVeigh and Nichols selling and buying drugs on his property, for heaven's sakes. And then you see Fast and Furious with Obama, and you see Biden leaving $85 billion worth of equipment in Afghanistan. That's going to the drug cartels and coming up through the southern border. This isn't, you don't have to be a detective to figure this out. I mean, this is real simple, really. And I hope I don't sound condescending. I just realized that we keep voting for these people. I don't understand we all knew that Hunter Biden was using crack. We knew that Obama did crack when he was in college. I mean, these were open information. This was open information before these people were elected. Hunter Biden wasn't elected, but if he was doing crack, do you think his dad might have had some knowledge of it? Yeah. You think might possibly have had something to do with his drugs? Yeah. And yet you voted for them anyway. And then you had Trump. Now, if you don't know Hugh's story, you don't know that he's part of the drug trade just as much. And so is his Attorney General Barr. And we talk about that in our videos with Hugh all the time. So get to know Hugh's story. Really look through that playlist on my YouTube and get to know Hugh's story. I don't think anymore we need to make these drug addicts into idols. I don't think we need to just flock around somebody whose only accomplishment in life was that they managed to get off drugs. Well, whoop-de-doo-dah. You know what you should be is you should be at the bottom of the food chain, pal. You have no right to go out and talk about how wonderful your advice is for staying off of drugs when you were on drugs to begin with. I mean, I've had 45 years without drugs and nobody's beating a path to my door. Nobody wants to hear my advice. Well, I can give you a lot better advice how to never do drugs to begin with. You should be beating a path to my door. Because I'm going to tell you things that aren't real comfortable, though. You're not going to feel very good. And you're not going to be able to use what I say to get more people in your rehab. You see the problem here? You see why the former drug users are the ones being elevated and pushed up and getting awards and standing with celebrities and politicians all the time? You see why that is? Well, I'm calling it. I see the con. I see what they're doing. And I don't want to make these people idols. I don't want other young people or other people, anyone, to look at these people and say, well, I see what happens if you use drugs in this town. Wow, everybody starts to like you, because if you get caught by the cops, all you got to do is just go to rehab, and then they'll you'll give you jobs, and heck, they'll even feed you 3 meals a day, and then you'll come out of there making more money, and then you got a clean slate, and then all the Christians say they have to forgive you. No, no, listen, Christians, let's go back to that a second. No, God does not forgive you automatically. This is why in Christian religion and Islamic and religion and other religions, there is a place called hell. This is why heaven has walls. Everybody doesn't go through those gates. You don't get automatic forgiveness. God doesn't do that. But you think I'm supposed to do that, and you think you're supposed to do that. And of course, you're not supposed to do that. This is just bad doctrine, bad theology that is developed as a result of the culture getting its way into your churches, okay? And telling you can't speak out in churches against the drug problems and against the political situations in your community. And of course, you should be doing it anyway, of course. But the dollar's more important to you too, pastors, isn't it? Because you're not trying to influence the community at all. You're not standing up against the drug addicts. I see a church here in Parkersburg that I saw on Facebook. I won't call it out, but they said they're having a revival, big revival right now, quote unquote. That's my air quotes here. Revival. Okay, so a whole lot of people in your church are having an emotional feeling when you can literally open the door and watch the people with the grocery carts stealing from business to business to business right in front of your building, and you don't organize and do anything about it. Now, let's put this back 200 years ago. Were the Christians that founded this country that inept? Did they see the British and forget Paul Revere? He didn't go run and tell everybody what was happening and try to gather the Minutemen together to do something about it. Did they just ignore them? Well, yeah, but I got a good feeling at church. We had a revival. Yeah. What good is your revival? You can't even band together to stand against simple problems in your community. You can't organize. Jesus said to be harmless as doves, but wise as serpents. So why don't you get a little bit of the same wisdom that the devil has? Obama said he wrote about Saul Alinsky wrote about rules for radicals. That's what I'm trying to say. And he praised the devil at the beginning of it, right? And his whole book was about organizing. And that's why Obama said he was a community organizer for Saul Alinsky, right? But it's not wrong to do that, because what's God say? I mean, God says to be wise as serpents. Well, the devil's the master organizer, Saul Alinsky says at the beginning of Rules for Radicals. He was the first rebel. I got some things you should be rebelling about, Christians. I'm rebelling against you because you refuse to rebel against the problems and the crime and the killing and the drugs and the little kids and the women being murdered right there out of your own churches. And you don't care or do anything about it. Shame on all of you. Organize. Be smart as serpents. Okay, be harmless. Be harmless as doves, okay? Get together and let these people know that they're not welcome anymore. Don't try to get them into your churches if they don't want to repent, if they don't want to change, if they don't want to be good for your community. Don't get them in and don't allow them in. Stand up. Remind yourself from the Bible what manhood is. Manhood is not just indiscriminately forgiving and feeding everybody. That's not Christianity. And I need to go back and disclaimer here that I don't believe the doctrines anymore, but I know them better than you do. I mean, I did get a bachelor's degree from Bible college. I at least do know some about the Bible. First time I read it, I was 13 years old. I mean, I read it plenty of times. I mean, I was preaching it at 13. I remember learning prophecy when I was like 13, 14 years old and writing it out on a whole bunch of pieces of paper and stuff like that and trying to teach it to other kids and at youth camp and stuff, doing prophecy and stuff like that. I mean, I got a pretty good idea of the Bible, but I also have read about historical Christianity and the actions and beliefs of the people who founded this nation not that long ago, and you don't resemble them anymore. Even though I may not believe that the doctrines were quite as literal as you do, I think the ideas are mostly pretty sound if you believe them correctly, but none of you do anymore. 200 years ago, they wouldn't have just sat by in their houses while people were selling drugs to their kids next door. And they wouldn't have. You know it. Why doesn't something stir in you to say no, no, no more, not in my town, not in my community. I'm going to stand next to my fellow Christians, my fellow community, anybody who wants to stand up against drug users and against drug sellers and against the city council members supporting them and against the rehabs and against the people indiscriminately feeding them so that they can continue their actions. You stand up against that, that's godly. You're not, because you don't really know God. And you need to rethink about who God really is, because your version of him is not based in reality, is not historical. And the people who handed you the Christianity that you've turned it into what it is today, or somebody not long before you has turned it into what it is today, the people 200 years ago wouldn't have recognized it. It's time to find the real God. See, the real God, he's two parts. I think it's real obvious. You say, well, there's three parts of Trinity. I get that. I understand. But there's two main parts. Because what's the first thing he made in the Bible? Light and darkness, right? The Spirit hovered. He was there, right? But first he had light separated from darkness. Yin and yang, good and bad, denim and lace, if you will. Hard and soft, masculine and feminine. But today, you Christians only have the feminine. You've lost the masculine almost entirely. Now, some Muslims, they still have it. Some Muslims around the world might even be a little too far to the masculine and need to come back to the middle. It's supposed to be a balance. It's supposed to be right there in the middle. You can't have one without the other, and you're not supposed to go too far this way or too far that way. Right in the middle. But I'll tell you what, I think I'd feel safer in most, not all, most Muslim communities in this world. I'd feel safer walking down the street than I would in just about any American city, and probably even in Parkersburg, West Virginia today. And that's your fault, because you call yourself a Christian, but you don't believe what you say you believe. You don't even understand it. And nobody's going to call me out on this. How long have I been on here? Hour and 13 minutes, and nobody's going to say I'm wrong. Are really? And I think it's because deep down inside, I'm right. I want to see people send comments to me and say, yeah, I'm in. Let's do this. Let's resist this together. I mean, you don't have to believe every last thing I said. You don't have to agree with everything. No two people think exactly alike. Plus, everybody knows something I don't know. So everybody on earth gets to be my teacher to some capacity. I want to be part. I don't want to lead anything. I'm not a leader. I don't want to be anybody. I don't want my name front of crowds. I just want to be a part. I just want to stir you up a little bit. Because most of you have never spent one day of your life really stirred up about anything. You think stirred up means griping about politics. Real stirred up means you get up off that couch thing that you spend most of your life on. Quit staring at that little box thing that you stare at most time, or the little box. And you go do something about it. I swear, I think most of you think Jesus just sat around in the grass all day, smoking doobies or something, because your version of Jesus never did anything. I know you believe you technically believe he did stuff, but the way you copy him isn't what he did. I mean, you don't walk around to do anything for your community. He fed the thousands, didn't he? Okay, well, but he fed the people that were trying to learn from him, didn't he? Did he just go out and feed everybody? No, he fed the people that were there watching him. The ones that didn't want to go home after it had been too long. Those are the ones he fed. He didn't feed the people that come in that have basically said, we're going to stay homeless for the rest of our existence on purpose. And thank you for the fish and Jesus, or thank you for the bread and the fish, Jesus, because now we could go out and use our silver talents here on and shekels on some good old drugs over here. Thank you. You think Jesus would have kept feeding them? Is that really what you think? I mean, are you that degenerate? Are you that immoral? Are you that far away from reality? What good is your Christianity if you think that? I'm talking about Catholic charities. I'm talking about North Baptist Church or whatever it's called. All these ones feeding these people. It's okay to feed people that you're going to really help, that want actual help, that want to contribute to the community, that want to be a part. It's not acceptable anymore to feed everybody at all times because you're harming people. You're bringing hell into your neighborhood and calling it a church. And you're extending the drugs to the next generation. And it'll never leave. You see, the masculine side will balance out that idiotic side that you're doing right now. That's 100% to the left, to the feminine, to the forgiveness, to just indiscriminate without thinking. Let's close the gap and bring some more thought into the picture. Bring some more judgment into judgment's okay. You think God doesn't judge people? Oh, you say, well, but the Bible says, judge not lest you be not judged. Well, it also says to judge righteous thoughts. How come you say the one and not the other? It says pull the beam out of your own eye before you judge the little thing in somebody else's eye. Okay. I'm not on drugs. But you know what? If I see somebody that's on drugs, yeah, I'm supposed to judge them and say that's wrong, and I'm not going to feed it, and I'm not going to help it, and I'm not going to continue that addiction to the next generation in my community and condemn all my family and all my relatives to hell, literally or figuratively. I don't care how you take that. Do you want to be chased by machetes for the rest of your existence, or are you gonna start thinking? Your thoughts have to come into the picture with your feelings. Some of you don't think you're lovey, touchy, feely, liberal, doobie smoking hippies, but you are, because you're led by your emotions. But you say, oh, but it's a Christian thing to do, to go out and feed the homeless. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. What was that verse again? Let's read it right here where we started this today. Second Thessalonians 3:10, for even when we were with you, this we command you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. Real simple question. Somebody comes into your food bank, if somebody comes into your soup kitchen, somebody comes into your charity, whether they want clothes or food, it doesn't matter. If they want help, here's the first question. What work are you willing to do? If they don't have an answer, bye. Sorry, we don't want to help you. You're not going to bring your hell here anymore. We're not building the kingdom of hell here. Because of your lack of discernment, because of your lack of knowledge and wisdom, you've brought hell to this community. You haven't brought heaven. You've brought the abyss, and you're bringing everybody else into the abyss with you. Like I said, literally or figuratively, however you want to discern that. I feel like Parkersburg is ever more and more becoming more of the abyss, more of the hell. So the people that run the rehabs, guess what? They also want to feed and clothe indiscriminately these people that are in the rehabs, don't they? I wonder why. Is there a profit motive? Yes. The love of money is the root of all evil. They sure love money an awful lot because it costs a lot of money to build these things, doesn't it? So they got to work pretty hard. Oh, and they can look good while they're doing it. Hey, they run a charity. Look at me. Old Man Rivers. Let me give all these homeless people a bunch of food. Look at me. Oh, I donated money through my church to Catholic Charities and Old Man Rivers. Look at me. I'm a good guy. Look at me. Look how great I am. While secretly you're an angel investor in the rehab. While secretly you run the ambulances and you depend on the Narcan money coming in from the government and the government paying for their ambulance rides. So you get them just well enough to be released into the community so they can buy more of your drugs as they go to rehab. And while they're there, they get to run the drug trade. I already showed you the evidence of that. So they run the drug trade all over the state here, and or all over the city here while they're in rehab, laughing at you, mocking you in their graffiti as they do it. That sounds like a good investment, doesn't it? Tell you what, let's invest in more food banks. Let's invest in more soup kitchens, huh? Let's give our money there. No, we need to protest them. You need to show them this video and tell them enough's enough. Need to come down hard, guys. Need to have some wisdom and discernment with your feelings and emotions. Feelings and emotions are dangerous without knowledge and discretion. Love is meaningless unless you love wisely. Having a good feeling, having a revival at church means nothing if all it is just a feeling, because the feeling has to be balanced by knowledge and wisdom and discernment. On another venue, you could say this is why women on their own, by and large, aren't so good at raising kids, and especially men, especially boys. You notice if a man gets the kids, he can usually raise pretty good kids by and large. But when women raise kids by themselves, they have a tendency to turn out kind of cuckoo, kind of off. It's because they get messed up in their emotions, and they can't find the wisdom and discernment to get back in the middle. And it's not always the case. There are wise women out there. Okay. But by and large, you get caught in your emotions more easily than you get caught up in your head. If I've been guilty of anything in my life, it's being way too caught up in my head most of my life. And that, that's off balance the other direction a little bit. But as the years progress and the more I learn and the more my emotions center my thoughts. But for the vast majority of the population, they're too far into their emotions, especially in the West, especially in our society. And you need thoughts and you need discernment and you need wisdom to bring you back to the middle so that your feelings are productive and useful and don't make things worse for yourselves, for your community, and for the next generation. Thanks for watching.